Hi, I'm Maria Thea Harris, or Velo Sews on social media. Welcome back to Sober 50's podcast on Sew Organised Style. Make sure you like and subscribe Sew Organised Style podcast on your podcast app and on YouTube.
You must get it all the time in the circles we talk with, where people doubt their sewing skills is one thing. Someone will say, oh, I'm a beginner, but actually they're intermediate because they've been sewing for 2-3 years, but they just have this tendency to doubt themselves. And then beyond that, oh no, I can't possibly design my own clothes. And I was just sat thinking, of course you can. It's actually really actionable and logical, and there's really easy step-by-step processes that you can do to unleash your creativity.
That's Alexandra Wells, or Digital Pattern Library on Instagram. On another topic, if you live in Australia and decide to purchase your own Mimi Queen custom dress form, I'll be your body scanner. Go to mimiqueens.com to book your Australian scanning session. Today's episode is Alexandra's story, and we recorded this late last year. Grab a cuppa and relax. So we'll talk about what's on the mannequin behind you as well, because
So
this is visual.
Pajamas.
Oh,
Yes, that is pajamas. Up here is we're doing sleepwear inside my membership. We focus on a different garment style every 4 months for my premium members. This is a toile. I've been told it looks very Christmassy, but this is going to be the final fabric. So this is sleepwear, yes, and I just need to toile up the trousers to go with it. It's always confusing on camera because everything's backwards, isn't it?
and you've got a jeans pocket template as well.
Got a jeans pocket, got some fabric manipulation going on there. So that was from another framework cycle. We did a pair of jeans. And so it's going through all the sampling and things like that. But we kickstart it with a 3-day design challenge every new framework cycle. I describe it like an online project runway, except you don't have to make anything and you're not swearing at a sewing machine. So I'll give them a design brief. So this one was design a sleepwear look that can transition from night to day, inspired by an interior designer. And I'll do it real time alongside anybody who takes part. And then if they want to, we turn it into the real thing. So yeah, at the moment we're in contour month, which is all about fitting amendments. So we're toiling up, fitting it to our bodies, and then I'll be sewing it in the real fabric, which I can't wait for because someone said this looks Christmassy. And I'm really sorry, but I hate Christmas. I'm such a Scrooge. I don't know why. I'm just such a Scrooge. I can't wait to see this in the final fabric. Should be good.
Should be great. Alexandra, thanks for coming onto the podcast today for Sober 50.
Thank you for having me, Maria. I am very grateful and excited to be here. Always been excited to have a little chat with you.
I'm really pleased that you reached out to me after listening to or watching. Did you listen or watch to the podcast?
Listened, yeah.
Okay.
Ali's, yeah. It was really interesting.
Because I'd never come across the Digital Pattern Library before. I had a look at how it's set up. Do you want to describe it? And I'll put some photos up. I'll put some images up on the YouTube version so that people can find it and, decide for themselves if they want to pursue what's in there. Yeah.
I'm going to start out by saying Digital Pattern Library is a slightly misleading title because in terms of selling sewing patterns, I actually only have about 9 in the library. However, bear with me.
I was going to ask about that.
It's a long story, but I'll keep it short. It started out as a side note to my ready-to-wear brand. I pivoted and started selling sewing patterns. And in parallel to the fashion industry, I discovered the sewing industry, which was very warm and fuzzy and welcoming, and a breath of fresh air. So I fell down the rabbit hole. And what transpired with my professional background is that people beyond my designs wanted to learn my skills. And so long story short, it turned into more of an education platform. What really struck me actually when I was speaking to sewists was how many people lack confidence in believing they can design and actually create ideas for their own wardrobe. You must get it all the time in the circles we talk with, where people doubt their sewing skills is one thing. Someone will say, oh, I'm a beginner, but actually they're intermediate because they've been sewing for 2-3 years, but they just have this tendency to doubt themselves. And then beyond that, oh no, I can't possibly design my own clothes. And I was just sat thinking, of course you can. It's actually really actionable and logical, and there's really easy step-by-step processes that you can do to unleash your creativity. And so beyond the sewing patterns, I just thought, who better to design the clothes you wear than the wearer themselves? So instead of relying on my design aesthetic or, I'm not throwing anyone else under the bus, but other sewing patterns design aesthetic where you can only select the fabric and the color, but you still have to play into their role of what the design is,
Yeah.
why not design it yourself? And so Digital Pattern Library, DPL is abbreviation, evolved into the DPL Atelier, which is a fashion membership that teaches the entire process from design through to drafting to your measurements, through to fitting, through to professional construction. And that is the journey of it, really. So I still do want to, bring out sewing patterns, but what my community needed from me felt more like education, which is where I've been pulled to. So the sewing patterns are there. They're just not being fired out at fast fashion pace, which is fine by me.
I liked how you've got a mix of, okay, so the patterns are at the top, and then there were the classes, which I assume would be there. But then you
Mhm.
also had the resources and you had bundled them. Can you describe what that's all about and why you did it?
The Fashion File Pact actually originated from my time at university. It's one of the first things they had us do, but in university it was called a technical folder, which, blah,
Mhm.
boring name. So I just thought a fashion file pack is basically bite-sized methods and techniques across sewing and construction and pattern drafting that I originally created as bonuses to my sewing patterns. So they were meant to be collectible, they were meant to build a file of knowledge, and they were meant to be bite-sized, really easy to follow and
Yeah.
digest, breaking down conceptual or overwhelming topics into something that's easy to follow. The first one started with Seams 101, but we've got things like patch pockets, we've got drafting a bodice, we've got sleeve amendments, slash and spread, dart manipulation. They're about 7 pages long each, and you can just really build an arch leather folder. That's basically, in layman's terms, what a fashion file is.
Yep.
You don't even need the packs to create your own. If you're learning something, if you're learning a sample or a technique, I just really think there is a lot of power to be had in throughout your learning process, reformatting that in your own voice.
Hmm.
Because even as I'm teaching, I'm doing that through my own vocabulary. I'm doing that through my own experience. If you're doing a welt pocket at the sewing machine and you can process that in language that suits you, then document that and put that in a fashion file. So the fashion file packs are supportive learning resources,
Hmm.
but you absolutely don't need them to start your own fashion file. And you can put all of your samples in there, like this pocket behind me, whatever direction you're pointing at, and make notes and take photos and just really elaborate on your creative process so that you can also see how far you've come. I think a lot of people forget where they started and where they're at now, and that's also a really nice process to document as well.
Traditionally, people were going through school and bought resources. You would
Mm.
buy a book that might be an inch thick and it might
Mm.
be all the basic sewing techniques. And
Mhm.
the reason I thought the fashion packs were worthwhile looking at is because you've got to scan through, go through the index, find what it is you want to do, look at
Mm.
that. Then you might have another book which was all about adjusting the pattern. So that might be
Mhm.
another book. So you'd go through all of that. Whereas I thought that the packs are actually a neat way of pulling all those resources together to come up
Mhm.
with, as you say, just the patch pocket on jeans that actually fit you properly. That's why I thought it would be interesting to find out why you put them together.
So I put them together. Honestly, there's no rhyme or reason to it. I've just systematically worked through them. As I say, they're bonuses to my PDF sewing patterns.
Mm,
So
mm,
if you buy any sewing pattern, you'll get a fashion file pack. And I've just bundled them in chronological order of how they've come out.
mm.
I'm afraid there's actually no rhyme or reason to it. But what I find with bite-sized information is it is customizable. So
Yeah.
as you say, whatever project you're working on,
Mm,
you might not need to understand how to do 12 different variations of cuffs. So you can kind of pick out what you need and build upon it that way. All of this information, as I say, is readily available. The same message can be repeated, but if it's repeated in the right format for somebody, then that's what sometimes makes it click. I mean, you may have watched, 500 YouTube videos on sharing or gathering. But if you actually hear it through someone who's delivering a message in language you understand or something that resonates with you, that's what really can help people learn. And that might be a different educator from me. I might be the person for them. It's just finding what clicks.
And what got you to this stage? So this is all about your story now.
It's been a funny old journey. It's been relatively linear in the sense that I've only ever done fashion.
Mhm.
But I'm being completely honest with you. I've only ever done fashion because I wasn't aware of other options before me. So I don't know if you can tell through the accent, but I am Welsh, grew up in Wales, grew up in a rather small school. And whilst I was academic, I obviously was very creative as well. But because I didn't want to do science, they didn't really have much of a broad horizon on what I could do with my creativity. And so, long story short, I kind of fell into fashion. I went to university, and my first day at university, I didn't even realize there was other degrees beyond fashion design. Didn't realize you could do promotion imaging, journalism, had no idea. But I'm also a very stubborn person. So once I was on the path, I was on the path. And anybody who has had the privilege, and it is a privilege, of studying fashion will understand how expensive that is as well, because you're buying material, you're hiring models. The runway show we had to do for our final collection, you're buying 6 pairs of shoes for 6 models. It's expensive. And then I became even more stubborn because I realized how privileged I was to be studying fashion when a lot of people don't have that opportunity. I joined the industry. That was a big wake up call. I've worked for couture houses. I've worked for a luxury streetwear brand, which was quite a rough wake up call. And I found myself in a position where I had fallen out of love with the industry and the reality of the industry, ethically, sustainably. And with a little bit of money left in my pocket, I had to either leave London, which is where I was living at the time and working,
Mm.
and move back to Cardiff. I love Cardiff, but it isn't the most fashion forward city. Don't come for me. And I decided to give it one last punt at doing something meaningful with clothes. When I grew up, my mum had MS. She was wheelchair bound. When I was 16, I was diagnosed with scoliosis. During my time in the industry, I was used as a fit model a couple of times until they found out that I had scoliosis, and then that clearly couldn't be used ever again. And so my dissertation at uni was all about fashion and society's ideologies of beauty fail those who are physically disabled. But once I joined the industry, I realized it actually fails all of us, really.
Mm.
Because
Mm.
if you don't fit in that box, then it fails you. We're constantly going to whatever high street store it is for you. You're a size 14 here and a size 18 there. And people, women especially, but people absolutely across the board, really tie their identity to their clothing. It's just been something I've been very conscious of throughout my life. So when I moved back to Cardiff, I started my own brand, and I had something on it called journey
Yep.
cards, which were essentially
Mhm.
swing tickets
Yep.
that documented the entire process of this garment, because I had so many experiences in the industry where the waste was just astronomical. We've worked on a couture garment before for 6 months, 8 interns hand embellishing and embroidering it for 8 hours a day. Unfortunately, burned the hem at the iron one day and it
Mm.
got scrapped. I really felt passionate about acknowledging all of the hands that created these garments. The premise was to reconnect my customer to their clothing. I wanted them to understand that a $3 or a £5 t-shirt isn't normal. Like, if you understand what goes into it,
Mm.
something's gone wrong along the way. And I garnered quite a lot of award recognition for that brand. And the journey cards, were a really good marketing point. But the moment it began to scale, I'm sure everyone knows what's coming. Journey cards are quite hard to keep on top of with a growing supply chain. And so
Yeah.
trying to find the name of the farmer that grew the crop that made the textile in an already smoke and mirrors elusive
Yeah.
industry
Yeah.
became really difficult. And that's how Digital Pattern Library was born, because I thought, okay, well, how else can my customer reconnect to their clothing? Oh, I know, I'll make them sew it themselves. And then the warm, fuzzy sewing industry, welcome me with open arms. And I was like, oh, this is a nicer place to hang out. So I think I'll settle here. And that's how Digital Pattern Library came around. And it's, hopping from all of these stepping stones on the journey with a little bit of stubbornness thrown into the mix and really feeling like as a community, it's not me doing something good, it's us as a community that are doing something wonderful with clothing. And that is just a lovely feeling.
In all of your stubbornness, did you ever think of leaving fashion totally, not doing the library, going down a different career path?
No, honestly, I didn't. My passion
Yeah.
outside of here is horses. My fiance is a farmer. When I'm not in the studio, I'm in a stable, quite literally. And my partner said to me one day, do you want to have a livery? Do you want to monetize it? And I thought, gosh, no, I don't, because the moment you monetize that, you lose your passion. The really nice thing I'm catering for is people's passion, people's hobby, which is sewing. I love it. I love fashion. I don't switch off and think, oh, I'm going to sew because I do it for 10 hours a day. I think it's really important to create that space online, especially for people that can't access workshops and for people that are passionate about it. I love it. I've never once thought about leaving it. I
Yep.
love the community. I think the pivotal point was when I left London and I thought I need to give this one last shot.
Yep.
Um, and luckily it worked. I don't know what I would have thought after that. I didn't get to that point, but
Mm,
luckily I've never thought I've got to pack this in. No, it's always pivot. I've always got to pivot.
good on you. Uh,
Thank you.
the fact that you are providing patterns, resources,
Mhm,
workshops to people in remote areas or people who
mhm,
don't have access
mhm,
makes a whole lot of sense. We've traveled through the middle of Wales and it can feel really remote. You travel
mm.
from one major city in Australia to another, it can be really remote as well. So there are a lot of people who don't have access to being with someone who can teach them skills. So I think what you've developed is a really good resource.
Oh, well, thank you. That means a lot to me. As I say, I'm not the only one. There's just fantastic
Yeah.
educators out there, but it is trying to find someone who you resonate with in how they explain something or, the rapport they build with you. And it is having that human connection because
Mm.
obviously a workshop, especially if you're fitting, we do fitting clinic calls inside the DPL Atelier where we have guest experts come in and my premium members can wear what they've made on the call and they get one-on-one bespoke fitting advice. There's clearly challenges to doing that through a
Oh,
screen
yeah.
that we've had to pivot around and navigate and figure it out. But we're all a very safe, warm, welcoming community. There's no judgment. There's, no assumptions about bodies. I mean, sizing charts need to be thrown out the window anyway. If you can draft to your measurements, that's the best place to start because there's just no cookie cutter figure. But yeah, it is important to have these online communities, and you're doing exactly the same here and connecting people. And how
Mhm.
fantastic it is that people, I mean, you're literally in Australia, I'm in Wales, couldn't be further away from you. And how fantastic it is that we can connect. So
Yep.
it
I
is
think
really lovely. It's a special time.
the technology that we've got access to these days allows us to, if we can't find something locally, or if
Mhm.
something locally doesn't fit with who we are and what we do, we can find
Mm,
something that's not local now. So we're really lucky. We're in a really good time to be able to pick and choose and do the research to find someone who can
yeah.
help us in the passion that we love.
I've always battled a little bit with this because sometimes, like when I'm alluding to people's confidence with,
Mm.
sewing, designing, whatever it is, you
Yep.
obviously don't know what you don't know. And so it's our responsibility, as educators to encourage that and build that confidence in people as well. If you don't know what you don't know, you don't know what to search for. You might not know what the fitting issue might be, which
Mm.
is why it's so important to have that one-on-one human interaction because you
Yep.
can really get lost down the rabbit hole of YouTube, can't you?
It doesn't mean that just because it's on YouTube, it's correct. And then the other day, I was thinking, what was it that made the teachers at school the actual correct way of doing things? Did we just assume that? I don't know. Because these days, we've got access to the ability to, if we want to do a particular piece on clothing, there's more than one way to do it. So,
100%. A
yeah.
hundred, and that's why I love fashion so much because if you, or just creativity, if you're a
Mm,
painter, if you're a whatever, if you feel like you've learned it all, that you haven't even scratched the surface. The whole point of creativity is rediscovering, reinventing, figuring out new ways of doing things. Yeah, you don't know if it's right on YouTube, but unfortunately, there is only one way to find out, and that is sampling, that is trial and error. I understand with fitting amendments, frustrations can arise because sometimes it takes 2, 3, 4, 5, if you're talking about trousers, 7 rounds of twirls to fit that crotch curve. But there is no magic wand. It's meant to be an enjoyable process. And I think what I try to encourage and facilitate and nurture
Mm.
is falling in love with the process and not getting hung up as much on the result. Obviously, the goal is to have the really nice, pretty, perfectly fitting result. But if you can't fall in love with the process, fashion, sewing might not be for you because
Yeah.
it's so process driven.
And lastly, before we finish up, how do you get someone who's been sewing for a long time, like me, to realize that they can actually design as well as sew?
Join a 3-day design challenge. We host that 3 days a year. No, honestly, it is so actionable. So what we do, and I'll try and break it down, but visually, I do have an example of this over on my YouTube channel. If anybody did want to go and see that at
Yep.
Digital Pattern Library, we answer a brief. Okay, so I have design a sleepwear set inspired by an interior designer of your choice. We always select a starting point that is unrelated to fashion because it's meant to be a springboard of information
Okay.
and inspiration in information. As you've just alluded to, Maria, there's more than one way of doing this, but the 3-day design challenge really condenses it into beginner friendly and actionable steps. You could take this beautiful mug and you could turn this into a sleeve design through looking at the silhouette, through looking at the color, and through looking at the texture. I mean, that could translate, the sheer ceramic of that could translate to a leather. And they're the 3 cornerstones of design
Mhm.
that we teach within the challenge. And you can honestly translate anything into a garment idea. And then we look at scale and proportion, which is blowing things up and scaling things down. A really simple exercise I would encourage anybody to do before you even design something from scratch is pick your favorite sewing pattern or your favorite design, whatever that is,
Yep.
and play around with enlarging and varying the hem length, the design features. So if it has a collar, make the collar a little bit higher and then make the collar a little bit smaller, or play around with a V-neck, turn it into a scoop neck. Do tiny little design changes
Mhm.
each time on your already favorite pattern, and you'll be amazed at the difference that that makes. And your confidence will start to build from there. Because I think designing from scratch from a blank canvas, which is what the design challenge facilitates, can be overwhelming. But we never draw upon existing fashion inspiration in the design challenge because I want anyone who comes into my sphere to tap into their authentic voice as a designer. I'm not trying to make people design like me. I'm not trying to make people pull ideas off the runway. I'm really trying to tap into who they are and what they want to have in their wardrobe. So many actionable steps. Just play around with design details and scale it up, scale it down, move a pocket from the left chest to the right chest. Something as simple as that
Mm.
is designing.
Sounds very actionable, as you said.
It is, I think a lot of people think creativity is too conceptual. And so
Yeah.
people are like, I'm not naturally creative, or like, I can't do that. There's so many tiny little steps you can do to build upon it. And that's what I get really passionate about because it's so lovely when someone's like, oh my God, I can't believe I've done this. And I'm like, I can believe you've done it because anybody can be creative.
Alexandra, thank you for coming onto the podcast on So Organised Style and for Sober 50 today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's always such a pleasure to just connect with people in the community and, get the word out there that sewing your own clothes, building your dream wardrobe, it's all absolutely possible. And this sounds really like soppy and intense, but I genuinely believe that people in clothes that make them feel confident
Mm.
generally are happier, therefore they're kinder, and that is the kind of planet I want to live on. So I'll leave on that note.
Same here. Thank you again.
Thank you.
This episode of So Organised Style podcast for Sober 50 was both video and audio produced by me, Maria Thea Harris, in my sewing room, with permission of Alexandra of Digital Pattern Library, sound by Kaneef on YouTube. Many thanks for the ongoing support of the podcast Patreon contributors. Their paid Patreon membership enables me to create these video and audio podcasts for you for free. You can subscribe to So Organised Style Podcast, but with an S, not a Z, on all good podcast apps and on YouTube. And yes, if you live in Australia and decide to purchase your own Mimi Queen custom dress form, I'll be your body scanner for Mimi Queens UK. Make sure you go back and listen to our free Sober 50 podcast episodes on So Organised Style. Direct message Sandy and the editors at Sober 50 on Instagram to contribute to the ongoing posts and challenges the team promotes to the community. I look forward to joining you in your sewing room next time. Stay safe, everyone.